Hello all, welcome to the lecture. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss an important act, that is the PISA Act of 1996. What is this act all about? Let us understand that. So this act was enacted in the year 1996, and the aim of the act was to provide for the extension of Part 9 of the constitution relating to the panchayats to the scheduled areas. Now, one thing that we have to understand over here is when we are talking about part 9, what does the part 9 comprises? Part 9 comprises the articles, that is from 243 to 243 ZT of the constitution, and it contains provisions relating to municipalities and the cooperative society. Now, before moving forward, we need to understand, since it's related to the scheduled areas, what do we mean by scheduled areas? So scheduled areas are such areas which are declared by the president after consultation with the governor of the particular state. So who declares the scheduled area? That is the president. President is the one who declares the areas as scheduled areas. But what do I mean by scheduled area? When I am talking about scheduled area, basically I'm trying to talk about with reference to India, these are areas in India with a preponderance of tribal population, and this tribal population, and we very well know that tribal population have their own distinct culture, their own distinct ethnicity. The way of living is quite very different from the normal population. So these areas are subject to special governance mechanism. Yes, these are subject to special governance mechanisms. Very, very important, where a very important role is played by the central government. So central government is over here playing a direct role in safeguarding their interest. What kind of interest? Basically their cultural and economic interest of the scheduled tribes in these areas. So this act that we are going to talk about is related to these scheduled areas. Now this act, when you're referring to this act, you need to learn that PISA Act of 1996 is also known by different terminologies, such as the provision of the Panchayat Act 1996, or you can say provisions of the Panchayat, extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996, or simply you can say Extension Act. So very, very important. Now, why was this act enacted, or why was this considered important? There are certain objectives behind it, definitely. Now, people living in scheduled areas, as we have just discussed, that their way of living is quite very different from the normal population. And there is not only just one factor, but in various factors we can say, yes, there is a difference, clear, considerable difference that we can find. So the first aim through this act, what the government wanted to do was self-governance. The government wanted to ensure self-governance through Gram Sabhas, or the village assemblies, for the people who are living in the scheduled areas. The other major objective is that it recognizes the rights of tribal communities who are the resident of these scheduled areas. So that what they can do is they can govern themselves through their own systems of self-government, and also acknowledge, we are acknowledging the traditional rights over the natural resources. One thing that we have to understand over here is that since we are talking about scheduled areas are areas where these people, you will find the tribal communities, and their connection with nature is very, very significant and important. Not just for livelihood, but if you look at in a wholesome manner, Their whole of the identity of these tribes is dependent upon these areas. How? They are connected for livelihood, for their culture, for various other facts. So if you look at the way maybe a normal population that is living in urban areas, they might not be connected. Somewhat we all are dependent. Everybody is definitely dependent on the natural resources. But here, these tribal communities, for various things, they are dependent upon these areas. So this act, what the act was doing, it was empowering the Gram Sabhas to play a key role in approving development plans and controlling all the social sectors. So now when Gram Sabhas are there, what they are doing, they will come up, they will give out their ideas, and it is very much connected to the idea that we are bringing people close to the system of governance by taking governance to them where they can, it is easily accessible to them, and as well as they can understand the various things, because we very much well understand that the right of tribal communities is also very important. So when I talk about the various provisions that are related to the act, so scheduled areas, when you're talking about that, these are areas those referred to in Article 244 Clause 1. So which says that the provisions of the fifth schedule shall apply to the scheduled areas and scheduled tribe in states other than the Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. So the fifth schedule, what the fifth schedule is doing over here, it is providing a range of special provisions for these areas. 10 states have notified fifth schedule areas that cover them partially or fully. Several districts in each of these states are there. The name of the states are Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand is there, Madhya Pradesh is there, Maharashtra, Orissa, Rajasthan and Telangana. Now, Bhuria Committee. This is another very important area. Since we're discussing this topic, we need to take into account is, now the government appointed a committee that was headed by Mr. Dileep Singh Bhuria to work out the details that as to how structures similar to Panchayati Raj institutions can take shape in tribal areas and schedule areas and define their powers. So this committee that was set up, it submitted its report in January 1995, and according to the recommendation of the committee, what it recommended was that a three-tier structure of self-governance in tribal areas should be there. So it said that there should be a Gram Sabha, there should be a Gram Panchayat, and there should be a block. So Gram Sabha, that every habitation community should have a Gram Sabha which will exercise command over natural resources. It will resolve disputes and manage institutions under it like schools and cooperatives. Then there is Gram Panchayat, an elected body of representatives of each Gram Sabha, also function as the appellate authority for unresolved disputes at the lower level. A block or taluka level body, that would be the next higher level. So what is the significance of implementing this act? Now we are talking about an act that aimed for democratic decentralization. How? This act, it is empowering the Gram Sabhas to play a key role in approving the developmental plans, and it's trying to control all social sectors. And when I am saying social sectors, that also includes management of several resources like water, forest and land. Also about the minor forest produce. It will include the management of the minor forest produce also, that is really very important. Then human resources, then it is about managing the local markets, it is about preventing land alienation, and also about regulating the intoxicants, right? Now these areas, so these areas basically, this is the significance of implementing this act. You're moving towards democratic decentralization. Also, it is about preserving the identity. So the powers of Gram Sabha include that it is going to maintain the cultural identity, the tradition, and control over schemes that affect the tribals, any kind of scheme that is being implemented and how it is affecting them, control over natural resources within the area of a village. So also, another very important takeaway here is that the PESA Act enables Gram Sabhas, that these Gram Sabhas, they are giving a safety net over the rights of the people who are living in the scheduled areas. And if any kind of conflict that is external or internal arises, right, it is going to protect them from that also, conflict resolution. And the Gram Sabha, very, very important. It will work as a public watchdog. The Gram Sabha would have the powers to monitor and prohibit the manufacturing, transport, sale, and any kind of consumption of intoxicants within the village limits. So we are protecting them, we are protecting their identity. So there are also various challenges associated with this act. The challenges are that firstly, there is partial implementation of this act. Now, state governments, they are, supposed to enact state laws for the scheduled areas in consonance with the national law. And what it has resulted in, that there is partial implementation, right? Partial implementation is there. And this partial implementation has worsened the self-governance in several of the Adivasi areas. Like if we state an example of a state such as Jharkhand. With that, the other objection, the second challenge over here is that administrative issues are there, and these issues are there. Administrative hurdles are there. So many a times there is also what is observed is there is lack of clarity, right? Clarity is not there, and absence of political will, and with that, all these create a lot of obstacles in complete implementation of the act. Other thing is that there was a social audit that was conducted across the states. It pointed out that in reality, different developmental schemes were being approved on paper by Gram Sabha. And what about, was there any concerned meeting that happened? Any kind of decision making, was it taking place? So is it being followed in letter rather than spirit? So these kind of issues that are visible over here. Now, as an act, if you look at it, is a very crucial and significant act because it is going to rejuvenate the whole of the self-governance system in these areas, and it is also going to give the opportunity to correct the loopholes in the traditional governance system by making it, more gender inclusive. And yes, when we are talking about democratic decentralization, we can really achieve that if it is implemented in a proper. So what we have understood from the PESA Act is that it was implemented with the basic aim, the objective was to preserve the tradition and custom of the tribal communities. The aim was to empower the panchayats at the appropriate level, giving them the specific power that is conducive for the tribal requirements. And also, very, very important, it was to prevent the panchayats at the higher level from assuming the powers and authority of panchayats at the lower level of the Gram Sabha. So this was all about the PESA Act, the aims, significance of the act we have discussed. Thank you.